My mother gave me away at birth and never looked back. Now she's suing me for a portion of the $5 million inheritance my adoptive grandmother left me. Before we dive deeper, may I ask a small favor? Kindly subscribe and also share where you're watching from in the comments. It makes our community feel closer. The certified letter arrived on a Tuesday morning, the kind that requires a signature and makes your stomach drop. I'm Amara Stevens, 28 years old, and I'd just buried the only mother I'd ever known 3 weeks prior. My adoptive grandmother, Dorothy Stevens, had raised me since I was 3 days old, and her loss had carved a hole in my chest that felt permanent. The funeral had been small, intimate, just how she would have wanted it. I tore open the envelope with shaking hands, expecting more condolence cards or final bills from the hospice. Instead, I found a legal summons. My biological mother, Shanice Monroe, a woman whose face I'd only seen in one faded photograph, was suing me for $2.5 million. Half of my inheritance. Half of everything Grandma Dorothy had worked her entire life to build. What the hell? I whispered, reading the words again. Parental rights, biological connection, entitled to compensation for emotional damages. The legal jargon blurred together as my hands trembled. I hadn't heard from Shanice in 28 years. Not a birthday card. Not a Christmas call. Nothing. Grandma Dorothy told me the story once, her voice tight with barely contained anger. Shanice had handed me over at the hospital, signed the papers, and walked away without looking back. She said she had dreams, baby, Grandma had said, stroking my hair. Dreams that didn't include you. Now those dreams apparently included my money. Called my best friend, Tasha. Girl, you sitting down? I asked when she picked up. Amara? What's wrong? You sound. My birth mother is suing me for half of Grandma's inheritance. The line went silent. Then, that bitch did what? I couldn't sleep that night. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw the numbers. $5 million. Grandma Dorothy had been a real estate investor, quietly buying properties in up-and-coming neighborhoods throughout Atlanta since the 70s. She'd lived modestly in her same Bankhead house for 50 years, driving her 2003 Honda Civic until it literally wouldn't start anymore. Generational wealth, baby, she'd always say. That's what we're building. The irony wasn't lost on me. The generation she'd built it for wasn't even biologically hers. By 6 a.m. I was at my kitchen table, surrounded by old photo albums and documents Grandma had left me. There was my adoption certificate, signed when I was 6 months old. Shanice's signature was barely legible, rushed and careless. In the margins, someone, probably a social worker, had written, "Birth mother refused visitation rights. Wants clean break." Clean break. Those words felt like acid. I found the single photograph Grandma had kept of Shanice, a young woman, maybe 19, with my same deep-set eyes and high cheekbones. She was laughing at something off-camera, carefree and beautiful. No hint that she'd just given away her baby. My phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. "Amara, this is your mother. We should talk before this gets ugly. I know you're hurt, but you need to understand my side. Call me." My mother. The audacity of those words made my blood boil. I blocked the number without responding. Tasha came over with coffee and breakfast sandwiches from our favorite spot on Cascade Road. "Okay," she said, spreading papers across my table like a war strategist. "Let's figure this out. You got a lawyer?" "Not yet. The funeral expenses basically wiped my savings. The inheritance is still in probate." "How much you got liquid right now?" "Maybe $3,000. Tasha's face fell. "Mara." The next day I drove to Grandma Dorothy's house. My house now, technically. The 1950s bungalow in Bankhead still smelled like her. Cocoa butter, pine cleaner, and the faint sweetness of her favorite perfume. Everything remained exactly as she'd left it, frozen in time like a museum to a life well lived. I'd been avoiding coming here, avoiding the finality of packing up her things. But I needed answers, and Grandma was meticulous about keeping records. If there was information about Shanice, it would be in her office. The converted sunroom where she'd managed her properties with an iron fist and a calculator older than me. The filing cabinet keys were in her desk drawer, right where they'd always been. I pulled open the drawer labeled Family, Personal, and found a manila folder with my name on it. Inside were the expected documents: my baby hospital bracelet, elementary school report cards, a Mother's Day card I'd made in 3rd grade with macaroni glued to construction paper. Then I found the letters. 3 envelopes, all addressed to Dorothy Stevens, all from Shanice Monroe. Postmarked 1997, 1998, and 2003. My hands shook as I opened the first one. Mrs. Stevens, I made a mistake. I want to see Amara. I've gotten my life together now. I have a job and an apartment. Please call me. The second letter was more desperate. You can't keep her from me. She's my daughter. I'm getting a lawyer. The third was angry. Fine. Keep her. But don't think I won't remember this when she's older. Blood is blood, and one day she'll know you stole her from me. My breath caught. Grandma had never mentioned these letters. Never told me Shanice had tried to come back. A post-it note was stuck to the last letter in Grandma's neat handwriting. Called my lawyer. Shanice showed up to my house intoxicated 2004. Restraining order filed. Keep these for Amara's safety. Sean Henderson's law office was in Buckhead, the kind of place with marble floors and abstract art that probably cost more than my car. Tasha had insisted on coming with me, squeezing my hand as we rode the elevator to the 14th floor. Miss Stevens. The receptionist smiled warmly. Mr. Henderson is ready for you. Sean Henderson was in his mid-50s, with graying temples and the confident posture of someone who'd won more cases than he'd lost. His office overlooked Peachtree Street, all glass and chrome and power. Thank you for seeing me on short notice, I said, settling into the leather chair across from his massive desk. Of course. I'm so sorry for your loss. Dorothy was a remarkable woman. He pulled out a thick folder. I handled her estate planning, so I'm familiar with your situation. Now tell me about this lawsuit. I handed him the summons. He read it silently, his jaw tightening with each line. Unbelievable, he muttered. Shanice Monroe. I remember her from the restraining order case in 2004. You knew about that? I filed it. Your grandmother paid me to handle it personally. He leaned back, steepling his fingers. Let me be direct, Amara. This lawsuit is garbage. Legally speaking, Shanice voluntarily terminated her parental rights. She signed adoption papers. Under Georgia law, she has absolutely no claim to your inheritance. Relief flooded through me. So she can't win? Not a chance in hell. But, he paused and my relief evaporated. She can make your life miserable for the next 6 to 12 months. Court dates, depositions, legal fees. Even fighting a baseless lawsuit costs money. How much money? With my rates? Probably 40 to 60,000 to see this through trial. The number hit me like a punch. I don't have that. I know. That's what she's counting on. This is a shakedown, pure and simple. Against my better judgment, I decided to meet Shanice. Sean had advised against it, but I needed to look her in the eye, needed to understand what kind of person sues the daughter they abandoned. We met at a Starbucks in Midtown, neutral territory. I arrived 15 minutes early, ordered a green tea I couldn't drink, and watched the door like a prey animal watching for predators. She walked in at exactly 2 p.m. and I knew her instantly. We had the same walk, the same way of tilting our head when uncertain. But where my face was soft with Grandma's gentle upbringing, hers was hard, lined with years of something I couldn't quite name. "Amara," she said, sliding into the seat across from me. "You're so beautiful. You look just like my mother." "Don't." My voice came out sharper than intended. "Don't act like you know me." Shanice's face tightened. "I understand you're angry." "Angry? Try furious. Try bewildered. Try wondering what kind of mother abandons her baby and then shows up 28 years later with a lawsuit." I was 18. Her voice rose, drawing stares from other customers. 18 years old with no money, no education, no support. "Your father, my boyfriend, he ran the minute I told him I was pregnant. My own mother kicked me out. What was I supposed to do? Not sue me for money that has nothing to do with you. That money should have been mine," he hissed, leaning forward. "Dorothy was my boyfriend's mother. She should have been my mother-in-law. If Sean, your father, hadn't been a coward, if he'd married me like he promised, I would have been part of that family. That inheritance would have been mine by marriage." The pieces clicked together sickeningly. "This isn't about me at all. This is about money you think you're owed. I gave birth to you. That has to count for something. You gave birth to me and gave me away in the same breath." Shanice's revelation about my father haunted me. My father's name was Sean and he'd been Grandma Dorothy's son. I'd always known Grandma wasn't my biological grandmother. The adoption papers made that clear. But I'd never understood the full picture. That night, I went back to Grandma's office and searched for anything about Sean Stevens. I found his high school graduation photo from 1995. A handsome boy with my same nose and smile. Behind it was his death certificate. Sean Anthony Stevens. Died February 14, 1997. Age 19. Cause: car accident. He died when I was 6 months old. I felt dizzy holding the certificate and shaking hands. My father had been dead for nearly my entire life and Grandma had never told me. But another folder, this one labeled Sean Jr. Inside were report cards, basketball trophies from newspaper clippings, and a letter from Georgia State University offering him a full scholarship. And then, tucked in the very back, I found it. A journal entry in Grandma's handwriting, dated March 1996. "Sean told me about the baby today. He's terrified but he wants to do right. Says he loves Shanice, wants to marry her after graduation. I told him he's too young, that they need to wait. Shanice is angry with me. She thinks I'm trying to keep them apart. Maybe I am. She's not stable, I see it in her eyes, that wildness. She reminds me of Sean Sr. before the drink took him. I'm scared for my boy." Another entry, dated August 1996. "Sean broke up with Shanice. Says she's been using drugs, staying out all night. The baby's due in 3 weeks. I told him he still has responsibilities, but he's just a scared kid himself. I don't know what to do." The final entry, dated January 2, 1997. "Shanice brought the baby to the hospital. 3 days old, barely 6 pounds. She said she can't do it, can't be a mother." The deposition was scheduled for a Monday morning at Sean Henderson's office. Shanice arrived with her lawyer, a slick-looking man named Trevor Price who specialized in family reconciliation cases, which apparently meant shaking down adopted children for inheritance money. I sat across from them at a massive conference table, a court reporter's fingers poised over her stenography machine. Sean Henderson sat beside me, his presence a comfort. "Let's begin," Price said, smiling like a shark. "Ms. Monroe, can you describe your relationship with your daughter?" "I gave birth to Amara on January 2, 1997, Shanice began, her voice practiced and smooth. "It was the hardest thing I ever did. But I was young, poor, and alone. I made the impossible decision to place her with Dorothy Stevens because I wanted her to have a better life. I wanted to scream. Sean squeezed my hand under the table. And after the adoption? Price continued. I tried to maintain contact. I sent letters, called. But Dorothy shut me out completely. She poisoned Amara against me, made sure I could never be part of my own daughter's life. That's a lie, I said, unable to stay quiet. Price turned to me, his smile widening. Miss Stevens, you'll have your turn. Now, Miss Monroe, when did you learn about Dorothy Stevens' death? I saw the obituary in the Atlanta Journal-Constitution. It listed Amara as her sole beneficiary, inheriting approximately $5 million in assets. Shanice's eyes met mine and I saw no warmth there, only calculation. I realized then that Dorothy had cut me out of everything. She'd taken my daughter and ensured I'd never benefit from the family that should have been mine. So you filed suit. I filed suit to claim what's rightfully mine. Amara wouldn't exist without me. The least she can do is share the inheritance. Something in me snapped. The least I can do? My voice was ice. The least I can do? You want to know what you did for me? Nothing. Sean Henderson tried to stop me, but I was done being silent. You want to talk about what's owed? I continued, standing up from the table. Let's talk about it. Let's talk about the chicken pox I had when I was 7, and how Grandma Dorothy stayed up for 3 nights straight putting calamine lotion on my spots. Let's talk about the time I broke my arm in 5th grade, and she worked double shifts for 3 months to pay the medical bills because her insurance had lapsed. Amara, Shanice started. I'm not finished. My hands were shaking, but my voice was steady. Let's talk about every birthday, every Christmas, every school play, every heartbreak, every triumph. Grandma Dorothy was there for all of it. Where were you? I was trying to get my life together. For 28 years? You know what I think? I think you didn't want me. You wanted your freedom, wanted to live your life without the burden of a baby. That's fine. That was your choice. But you don't get to come back now and claim you're owed something. Trevor Price stood up. Miss Stevens, these emotional outbursts won't help your case. I don't have a case to make. I slammed my hands on the table. She's the one suing me. She's the one claiming that squeezing me out of her body 28 years ago entitles her to money she never earned, from a woman who raised me while she was off doing God knows what. I was building a life. Shanice shouted, standing to meet me across the table. I was in school working 2 jobs trying to become someone you could be proud of. Then where's your degree? Where's your career? Where's any evidence that you spent the last 3 decades doing anything but avoiding responsibility? The silence that followed was deafening. Shanice's face crumpled, and for a moment, I almost felt sorry for her. Almost. That night, Tasha came over with Thai food and a bottle of wine. Girl, I heard you went off in that deposition, she said, settling onto my couch. Sean called me. Said you made Trevor Price's client cry. Good. I stabbed at my pad thai viciously. She should cry. I should cry. This whole thing is insane. Have you thought about settling? Just giving her something to make her go away. Every single day. But Sean says that's what she wants, to terrorize me into paying her off. He says if I do it, I'll regret it forever. He's right. Tasha poured us both generous glasses of wine. But that doesn't make it easier. My phone rang. Unknown number. I almost didn't answer, but something made me pick up. Amara Stevens? A woman's voice, older, uncertain. Yes. My name is Patricia Monroe. I'm Shanice's mother. Your grandmother. I nearly dropped the phone. Tasha's eyes went wide as I put the call on speaker. I know I have no right to contact you, Patricia continued, her voice thick with emotion. But I had to call. I had to tell you the truth about what happened because Shanice is lying to everyone, including herself. I'm listening. When Shanice got pregnant, I didn't kick her out. I begged her to stay to let me help raise you. But she was using drugs, cocaine mostly, and running with a bad crowd. She'd disappear for days. When you were born, she brought you home for exactly 2 days. Then one morning I woke up and you were both gone. Next thing I knew, she'd given you to Dorothy Stevens. My chest tightened. Why? Because Dorothy had money and Shanice thought she could use you as leverage. She tried to get Dorothy to pay her $10,000 she wanted to get on her feet. Dorothy refused and adopted you instead. Patricia Monroe agreed to meet me in person. She lived in College Park in a modest apartment complex near the airport. When she opened her door, I saw an older version of Shanice, but with kind eyes and careful hands that trembled as she invited me in. Thank you for coming, she said, gesturing to her living room. Photos covered every surface. Pictures of Shanice as a child, school portraits, family gatherings. And in the middle of it all, one photo of me as a baby, the only one she had. I've thought about you every day for 28 years, Patricia said softly. Wondered if you were happy, if you were loved. Dorothy wouldn't let me see you. She thought I was too close to Shanice, that I might tell her where you were. Wait, Shanice didn't know where I was? Not until you turned 18 and the records were unsealed. Even then, she didn't try to contact you. Not until now. Patricia pulled out a cardboard box. I saved everything. All the evidence of who Shanice really was, who she still is. I thought you might need it someday. Inside the box were police reports. Arrests for possession, shoplifting, check fraud. Court orders for mandatory rehab. And most damning of all, another adoption certificate. She has another child? I whispered, staring at the document. Had. A boy born in 2001. He gave him up to, same as you. Told the adoption agency she couldn't care for him. Patricia's eyes filled with tears. I tried to adopt him myself, but I was already 65 and they said I was too old. He went to a family in Alabama. I don't even know his name now. Does Shanice's lawyer know about this? I don't think so. She's been telling everyone you're her only child, that giving you up destroyed her, that she spent years trying to get you back. Patricia's voice hardened. It's all lies. She's doing this for money, pure and simple. I pulled out my phone and called Sean Henderson, hands shaking. I have evidence. We need to meet. Now. Sean Henderson reviewed Patricia's documents with growing satisfaction. This is exactly what we need, he said, spreading police reports across his desk. Shanice has been portraying herself as a devoted mother torn from her child by a cruel system. This proves she's a serial abandoner who's only interested in money. Can we use it in court? Absolutely. We'll file a motion to dismiss based on fraud. And, he smiled wickedly. I'm going to countersue her for abuse of process and emotional distress. If she wants to play dirty, we'll bury her. The next deposition was 2 weeks later. This time we came prepared. Trevor Price started with his usual sympathetic questions, letting Shanice paint herself as a victim. Then Sean stood up. Ms. Monroe, you testified that Amara is your only child, correct? Yes, Shanice said confidently. And you've never given up another child for adoption? Shanice's face paled. What? Sean slid a document across the table. This is an adoption certificate for Sean Deshawn Johnson, born to Shanice Renee Monroe on March 15, 2001. Would you like to revise your testimony? The room went silent. Trevor Price grabbed the document, his face darkening as he read. I can explain, Shanice started. Please do, Sean said coldly. Explain how you're suing Amara for depriving you of a relationship when you voluntarily gave up 2 children. Explain how you're claiming emotional damages when you never once tried to contact your daughter in 28 years, despite knowing exactly where she was after she turned 18. This is a witch hunt. Price sputtered. This is the truth, Sean shot back. He produced another stack of papers. 3 arrests for drug possession between 1998 and 2005. 2 stints in court-ordered rehab, both of which you failed to complete. A restraining order filed by Dorothy Stevens in 2004 after you showed up at her home intoxicated and threatening. Should I continue? Shanice was crying now, mascara running down her face. You don't understand what it was like. I understand perfectly, I said quietly. All eyes turned to me. You're a con artist. You've been running cons your whole life. On your mother, on Sean Henderson, on his mother, on your children. The trial lasted 3 days. The courtroom in Fulton County was packed. Apparently our case had made the local news, and people were fascinated by the drama of an abandoned child being sued by her birth mother. Judge Carol Williams was a no-nonsense black woman in her 60s who'd seen everything twice. She listened to Shanice's testimony with an increasingly skeptical expression. You claim you were prevented from seeing your daughter, Judge Williams said, reading from her notes. Yet you never filed for visitation rights, never contacted child services, never attempted to challenge the adoption legally. Why? I was told I couldn't, Shanice began. By whom? By Dorothy Stevens' lawyer. Did you consult your own attorney? I couldn't afford one. Judge Williams looked unimpressed. Ms. Monroe, legal aid is available for family law cases. If you truly wanted to see your child, there were avenues available. You chose not to pursue them. Trevor Price tried to salvage the situation. Your Honor, my client was young, scared, and unsupported. She made mistakes, yes. But that doesn't negate her biological connection to Ms. Stevens or her right to inherit. Her right to inherit? Judge Williams interrupted. Counsel, do you understand how inheritance law works? Ms. Monroe voluntarily terminated her parental rights. Under Georgia law, she has no more claim to Amara Stevens' inheritance than a stranger on the street. Blood is blood, Your Honor. Not in my courtroom it isn't. Judge Williams turned to Sean Henderson. Mr. Henderson, I've reviewed your countersuit. Abuse of process, intentional infliction of emotional distress, and fraud. Tell me why I shouldn't grant summary judgment in your favor right now. Sean stood, buttoning his suit jacket. Your Honor, Ms. Monroe has caused my client immeasurable harm. She waited until Dorothy Stevens died to file this suit, knowing Amara would be grieving and vulnerable. She lied about her history, concealed the existence of another child she abandoned, and portrayed herself as a devoted mother when the evidence clearly shows otherwise. This lawsuit was never about family, it was about money, pure and simple. Judge Williams nodded slowly. Miss Stevens, would you like to address the court? My hands shook as I stood. Your Honor, I began, my voice steadier than I felt. I don't hate Shanice Monroe. I actually feel sorry for her. But feeling sorry for someone doesn't mean letting them victimize you. I looked at Shanice, really looked at her. She was crying again, but I felt nothing. No anger, no pity, just emptiness where she should have been. My grandmother Dorothy Stevens wasn't perfect. She was tough, sometimes stubborn, always brutally honest. But she loved me with everything she had. She worked 2 jobs to send me to college. She taught me about compound interest when I was 12. She showed me what unconditional love actually looks like. My voice cracked, but I pushed through. Shanice Monroe gave birth to me, yes. That's biology. But Dorothy Stevens made me who I am. That's love. And she left me her inheritance because she trusted me to honor her legacy, to build on what she created, to pass it forward to the next generation. I turned to Judge Williams. This lawsuit has cost me $60,000 in legal fees. It's put the estate in probate limbo for 8 months. It's forced me to relive the trauma of abandonment over and over again. And for what? So a woman who didn't want me could try to profit from my grandmother's death. The courtroom was silent. Even the court reporter had stopped typing. I'm asking this court to dismiss Ms. Monroe's lawsuit with prejudice and to grant our countersuit in full. Not because I want revenge, but because actions have to have consequences. You can't abandon a child and then sue them decades later. You can't weaponize the legal system for extortion. That's not how family works. That's not how justice works. Judge Williams removed her glasses, cleaning them slowly. Miss Stevens, thank you for your testimony. Ms. Monroe, I'm going to be blunt with you. This is one of the most frivolous lawsuits I've seen in 30 years on the bench. Shanice's lawyer stood up. Your Honor, if we could just... Sit down, Mr. Price. Judge Williams' voice was ice. I'm dismissing this case with prejudice, meaning Ms. Monroe can never refile. Furthermore, I'm granting the countersuit. Ms. Monroe, you are ordered to pay Ms. Stevens $60,000 in legal fees plus an additional $50,000 in emotional distress damages. You have 12 months to pay or I'll garnish your wages. Shanice's face went white. I don't have that kind of money. Then you shouldn't have filed this lawsuit. Judge Williams banged her gavel. We're adjourned. 6 months later, I stood in Grandma Dorothy's sunroom, my sunroom now, looking at the wall where I'd hung her photo. The estate had finally cleared probate. The properties were mine, the investments were mine, the legacy was mine. Shanice had tried to contact me twice since the trial. I'd blocked her both times. Patricia Monroe, however, had become a surprising presence in my life. We met for lunch once a month, sharing stories about Dorothy and navigating the complicated grief of loving broken people. I'd used $50,000 of the inheritance to establish the Dorothy Stevens Scholarship Fund for foster children pursuing higher education. It felt right, honoring the woman who'd chosen me when she didn't have to. My phone buzzed. A text from Tasha. Dinner tonight? I need details about your date with that fine lawyer from Sean's office. I smiled, typing back. His name is Jordan, and yes, he's fine, and yes, we can do dinner. Life was moving forward. The past would always be there. Shanice, the lawsuits, the abandonment. But it didn't define me anymore. I was Dorothy Stevens' granddaughter, proud inheritor of her strength, her wisdom, and her unconditional love. And that was worth more than any inheritance.